Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here. I hope you had a good weekend. We are in the midst of the first of many peasant revolts to come. We are going to spend a lot of time this week in particular talking about populism, because the populist wave did not end with Trump. That's for sure. It's just beginning. I want to start here with Chamath. Chamath Palihapitiya. Palihapitiya, I think that's right. One reason that I am signing the referendum to recall Governor Newsom here in California is because Chamath is running for governor, right? If we recall, which is fun, if nothing else. So here's what he wrote the other day. He said, Facebook and Robinhood are the same. They both trick you into thinking you are the customer, but in fact, you're the product and your data is the asset. These assets are then sold to their true customers who pay them money and always at your expense. Stop being tricked. And this is my daily pitch for MikeSlater.locals.com. Please join us over there. Get rid of the big tech, get off big tech. Join us at MikeSlater.locals.com. Stop being tricked. You're not the product over there. The people who control the mechanisms, right? The mechanisms that we do almost everything now have completely different worldviews than you or I do. So in the end, they're always going to cut you out, right? Think about it. You're here, information's over here, Google's the middleman. And if they don't want you to get over here, they're not gonna let you, right? You're here, your friends are over here, your like the ability to communicate with people and make connections with people is over here. Facebook's the middleman. They're not gonna let you, right? We'll talk more about this in the next segment, but Facebook got rid of a Wall Street Bets group, right? They cut it out. They cut out, they're the middleman, they cut you out, right? You're here, the stock market's over here. Robinhood's the middleman, right? They'll cut you out. It's true for all of them. They will use you to get power and money, right? You're the product. And we stupidly for so long have given them us for free, right? And then they sell you, right? So they use you to get power and money. And then when it looks like you're getting too much power, they cut you out. There's also something to be said for, the people who control these mechanisms, the middlemen. They have completely different worldviews than you do. That's one thing. Different politics, certainly. But they may not even be good people, which is another thing to consider. So here's another quote from Chamath. He said, so Chamath is a billionaire venture capital guy who is an amazing story. He was born in Syria, came to Canada when he was, I think, 6. His dad leave? He was raised by a single mom, I think, on welfare. Anyway, amazing story and very interesting guy. And now he's a billionaire. Well, 1 billion, so barely. He says, I remember when I met the Robinhood founders when they were raising their seed, Series A and Series B. I passed. Why? Optimize for integrity whenever possible. Because integrity compounds and blank holes will blank you. All right? Just go with that. Optimize for integrity, because whenever possible, because integrity compounds and blank holes will blank you. Surround yourself with good people, and he chose to pass on Robinhood because he didn't find them to be good people. That's what I get from that. So let's go back to populism here. So everyone's starting to we talked about this on Thursday's show, right? But people are starting to catch up to the fact that this is just an example of a populist revolt, a peasant revolt. Even if you don't understand all the technical aspects of GameStop and all this, like what is short selling and all that. We did an explainer of that last week. But even if that doesn't make any sense, don't even worry about it, right? Just understand the narrative that the little guys all got together and stuck it to the hedge fund fat cats who lost billions. I've heard a lot of different numbers. Yesterday I heard 20 billion who knows, right? Tens of billions of dollars. It is no different in essence than the peasants grabbing their flaming pitchforks and marching to the castle. It's the same thing, just done differently. And all of this we're seeing with GameStop and everything, it's just the latest of many peasant revolts to come. Darren Beattie, he put it like this. He says, we are going to see a lot more system collapsing, coordinated behavior. System collapsing, coordinated behavior. It's populism. It's why people on the left and the right are united on this, right? It's why AOC and Donald Trump Jr. are united on this, right? I got a bunch of people on Reddit trading from their computers in their bedrooms, taking down the hedge funds. You got the little guy versus the hedge funds. It's united the country like nothing's been able to do these last couple of years. Populism is alive and well, for better or worse. And again, this is going to be the theme of the week, and it's going to be our special on Fridays about populism. And we need to go, like, as much as I celebrate all of this, we need to go in with a sober mind about what populism really means. Because usually it ends with people's heads getting chopped off. So let's be careful with what we're dealing with here. But we'll talk about that as the week goes on. In the meantime, I don't know what other means there are, right? I don't know what other mechanisms exist that are not controlled by billionaires. Right? The elites, they control all the levers of power right now that I can think of, right? From big tech canceling the president, which is wild. I know that kind of passed because everyone saw it coming, but that is a mind-blowing thing that happened. The elites run the show. They drag you along thinking that you can make a difference, thinking that you are in control, and you're the chump all along. Alan Bukhari, he's been on the show before. He's the tech guy at Breitbart. He said trading halted for volatility. Voting halted for volatility. Social media halted for volatility. Constitution suspended for volatility. Throwing you in the gulag. You get the point. You are causing too much volatility. The elites don't like it. This is why we need to decentralize as much as possible. We need to decouple from everything, decentralize from everything. I don't even know what that fully means or how to fully do that in every way, but we need to have that mindset moving forward with everything we're doing. Who are we making rich? Who really has the power in what I'm doing right here? There's something really weird that we did. I don't even know when this was. 2004, I don't know what year this was, but we as a people made a really bad decision that everything on the internet must be free. And we just expect that now. And when everything's free, as we said earlier, you become the product. Years ago, you probably heard that for the first time. I know I did. I heard it years ago for the first time that you're the product. You're not the customer of Facebook, you're the product. And when I first heard that, a light bulb went off. Right? But it's social media, it's free. And we just took it. Like, oh, that's great. It's free. Isn't that amazing? But it's with everything, right? Email, right? Your Gmail's free. You're not the customer. You're the product. Same thing with stock trades, right? You're like, oh, free trades on Robinhood. You're not the customer. You're the product. They're not really interested in making your life better. It was to make rich people richer, right? Rich people said, hey, let's let the people trade stocks for free. So we, the people, said, it sounds great. And then when it started to not go well for the rich, they said, never mind, you're not allowed anymore. All right, so what do we do with all this? In the next segment, I want to talk about how the system protects its own. Right? We've got many, many examples of that just from the last few days. But I want to leave with this segment here, or with this quote here, this thought here. This is from Professor Jacobson. He's at Cornell Law School. And he's a conservative, and he made the point that we're in a time of real unknowns right now, right? He said there's some metaphor here with GameStop and Robinhood. This is a metaphor for what's going to happen to the left politically and culturally. Here's what he said. He said the smug, aggressive, abusive Democrats, liberal media, and leftist activists feel vulnerable to challenge, like the rich fat cats, right? Who brag about how they're going to purge the deplorables from public life, deprive them of their ability to earn a living. I have a crazy story in the next segment about that. Cancel them from life and the internet. They are ascendant, taunting people, trying to criminalize political opposition to the party that controls both houses in Congress, the presidency, higher education, increasingly elementary and secondary education, the entertainment industry, big tech. Whatever other elements there end up being in this story, it is sure that the short-selling hedge fund billionaires did not see it coming. And a bunch of people organizing under the radar stuck it to them. Here's the key. I think there's some political equivalent here. I don't know what it looks like yet, but there's only so long that the rapid destruction of jobs and the economy and political persecution can continue without the political equivalent of a short squeeze on Democrats. Again, no one knows what it will exactly look like yet, but it will happen. True story. Mike Slater, talking about how the system protects its own. Next, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. In this segment, I want to prove something that Jesse Kelly said the other day to be true, which how could you ever prove something that Jesse Kelly said wrong? That's impossible. So let me piggyback on his point here. He made the point this weekend that the system takes care of its own. So I got a bunch of examples from just the last few days of that happening. And then I want to talk about betrayal and treachery. We'll tie it all together. So first, Facebook, there's a Reuters headline that Facebook has taken down the popular Wall Street discussion group, Robinhood stock traders amid GameStop frenzy. So as I talked about in the last segment, right? They're the middleman. So you're the people's over here. Here's the ability for people to discuss something, and Facebook's the middleman, and they're like, nope. They cut you out. That's first. Second, Google removed 100,000 one-star Robinhood reviews. Right? Completely justified reviews. Robinhood's entire motto was let the people trade. And then people signed up thinking they could trade. And then all of a sudden, they won't let people trade. So a one-star review is very appropriate. Google deleted all of them. Because all the big tech guys, they all protect their own. Are you familiar with the Epoch Times? EPOCH? I think that's how you even pronounce it. I don't quite understand the Epoch Times. I think they're based out of Hong Kong. And they're like affiliated with some Buddhist sect. They're on the right. They supported Trump. They hate China. They're banned in China. I don't quite get them. I don't really know where their money comes from. Someone gave me, just a couple weeks ago, they gave me a copy of it. It's like a big, thick newspaper. Anyway, they were demonetized from YouTube. So YouTube cut out that source of revenue for them. And that's a lesson for everyone. This is what happens when you build a business model based on Silicon Valley, right? Again, run by people with completely different worldviews than yours, who don't have a dedication to freedom of speech and an exchange of ideas. Don't build empires on sand. So, Google, YouTube shuts out Epoch Times. This may be one of the craziest cancel stories I've ever heard, right? So obviously we have companies being cut out and the people, but it's also individual people. This might be the craziest of them all. So there's this woman, she's a regular woman, just 7,000 followers on Twitter. She's a book agent or a literary agent at some publishing house in New York City, right? She's a regular person, not a political activist or anything. I looked at her Twitter page. She's nothing political at all. One day she said she couldn't log on to Twitter. She couldn't log on for whatever reason. So she opened up a Parler and Gab account. Right? Parler and Gab, like the alternatives to Twitter. One person, an anonymous person with 2,000 followers, wrote to her employer, and we have the tweets right here. It says, do you know or care that one of your agents frequents alt-right social media like Parler and Gab? That's it. That was it. One random anonymous Twitter account. And all she did was say that one of your employees uses a social media platform. It wasn't even, hey, here's all this crazy alt-right stuff. There wasn't even a point. It was just she's on it, therefore must be fired. And she was. And then the head of the literary agency brags about it. on Twitter, which is the weirdest thing. Like, when did these internal HR things even become like public? Well, it's all the virtue signaling, right? It's not just, it's bad enough they just fire her, but then they have to be, oh, look at us, we fired her. Here's what she said. This person's no longer at our agency. Our agency has in the past and will continue to ensure a voice of unity, equality, and one that is on the side of social justice. And now I'm reading this, I'm like, hold on, there must be something else going on here, right? This other woman must have also, like, I don't know, murdered someone or something that they would just fire. But no, look at the third tweet, guys. If you throw it back up, the third one. We're distressed to discover this morning that one of our agents has been using the social media platforms Gab and Parler. We do not condone this activity, and we apologize to anyone who's been affected or offended by this. One person complained without any specifics of what they were doing on those sites, just that they're on them. What in the world? Whatever number we're on right now, Facebook, the people who are behind recalling the California governor, Gavin Newsom, they can no longer place ads on Facebook anymore. They won't allow it, okay? We'll stop there. So you get the point? So you can't post videos if you have the wrong point of view. You can't buy certain stocks because the people in charge won't let you. You can't reach people who may want to also sign the petition to recall the governor. You can't even use alternative social media sites like Parler or Gab, or else you may get fired. You got it? You see what's going on? MikeSlater.locals.com. Dave Rubin's platform. That's where I'm living now. Join us over there and get out of this. Our days are numbered on these other sites anyway. MikeSlater.locals.com. All right, I want to talk about what this populist rage is. Again, that's going to be the theme of the week and beyond, because that's what we're in the midst of. What is this rage? Where does it come from? And I want to talk about betrayal, treachery, the lowest level of hell in Dante's Inferno. So each circle of hell represents a greater or a worse sin. And the ninth circle, the lowest circle, is treachery. And you can see in this picture right here, they're stuck in ice. That's their penalty. Every layer, people have different punishments. And in this layer, they're stuck in ice, right? Because we think of hell as burning fire, right? This is ice, this layer, right? You're denied all the warmth of human love. You're denied God's love in the fullest, or you did deny God's love, and now you are denied it, and you're removed further than anyone from the light and the warmth of God. You are denied all human ties, all human connection, and you're bound by rock-hard ice. That's the punishment. And you can see in that picture as well, you're in like a mangled up position. Anyway, Cain is there. He murdered his own brother. One of the king of Troy's counselors who betrayed his city during the Trojan Wars, betrayed his city to the Greeks. He's down there, right? So you can betray your family. You can betray your city. And then worst of all, lowest of all, is Judas betraying Jesus. And then in the center of it all is the devil himself for betraying God. I share all this because you don't mess with treachery. You don't mess with betrayal. Whenever I think of treachery, betrayal, I think of Braveheart, right? That scene in Braveheart where he realized that he was betrayed, right? That's the worst thing there is. And that's what people are feeling. We're going to talk about, again, populism this week, and one of the points I want to make about populism is it's not a super rational thing. It's very emotional. But the emotions are real. The emotions are real. And you don't mess with treachery. So Simon Sinek, he did a great TED Talk a while back. He wrote a book called Great Leader. It's either Why Leaders Eat Last or Great Leaders Eat Last. And here's the very, very short of this, right? First, life is full of danger, right? Life is full of danger. It's the reality of life, it's full of danger. Back in the day, it was your saber-toothed tigers. Today, from whatever, COVID, going bankrupt, whatever. There's danger out there. First point. Second point, we like to feel safe. So to feel safe, we form groups. We stick together. That's the advantage we have as humans, is we can cooperate with each other. So we stick together to either be safe or at least feel safe. So we're in these tribes. If you leave the tribe, a lion can pick you off. But if you stay in the group, they can't. Right? The Spartans, right? They formed this impenetrable shell with their shields. Right? They interlocked their shields so nothing could pass through. They stuck together. As soon as one shield fell away, then the whole group would fall. Right? Third truth. Right? You with me so far? Third truth. We are hierarchical. Every group has a hierarchy in it. It's unavoidable, right? So you form your group, so life is dangerous, you form your group to feel safe, and then you're in that group and you immediately are looking around finding the alpha, which is what everyone does. We look for the biggest, the strongest, the smartest, the best looking, whatever, to be the leader. We always look for the alpha or the alphas. Now, when times are good, the alpha gets to go first and gets the best and gets the most. And no one has a problem with that. No one has a problem with the boss making more money than everyone else. No one has a problem with the boss having the corner office or with all the windows or whatever. We get it. He's the boss. That's fine. He's the alpha. No one has a problem with that. That's the advantage of being the alpha. You get those things. But there's a cost. The cost is when times are bad, you sacrifice first. Right? So when times are good, the alpha benefits the most. When times are bad, the alpha sacrifices the most. That's the deal. And we know this inherently. It doesn't have to be articulated, right? It is deeply ingrained in our moral code. That's the deal. And that is what so deeply offended the American people when the bankers and everyone got bailed out in 2008. Because they were the alphas when times were good, and that was fine. No one had a problem with that. But then when times were bad, they failed in their responsibility of being the leaders and taking the sacrifices. They did not take the hit. They got bailed out while everyone else got hurt, lost their homes and jobs, etc. That is betrayal. That is a deep betrayal. And a lot of what we're seeing right now is the ramifications of that, 12 years later. Because a lot of the people in this Wall Street bet stuff were teenagers as their parents lost their homes and jobs. And now, right, now there's time for revenge. It's the betrayal. It's deep. We talked about this a while back. I think it was here. We may have done it on the radio. When, just in terms of your family, right? So like a normal life, let's say the family's eating steak, right? Family dinner, steak night. The man gets the best piece of meat, right? The biggest, juiciest ribeye. In times of difficulty, rationing, war, pandemic, say the power's out for a couple of days, whatever it is, if there's a time when there's not a lot of food, the man eats last, if at all. Everyone else eats, and they sacrifice. We get that, right? Imagine if you're rationing in a house, and the man eats all the food and leaves the women and children to like, that doesn't, on the Titanic, ship sailing, men get first dibs of everything. That thing starts sinking, the men get off last. The survival rate for women on the Titanic was 74%. The survival rate for men was 20%. When it doesn't go that way, people get very angry, and it's a righteous anger perhaps. They feel betrayed. We had a deal, and they think they can get away with it? And the elites, they do for a long time. They do get away with it. And they trick themselves, they delude themselves into thinking they'll always get away with it. And they always do until one day they don't. Not anymore. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, I want to go to one of the smartest guys I know, Alexander Fleiss. He's the CEO of the think tank and asset management firm Rebellion Research. Mr. Fleiss, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on today. My pleasure.
My pleasure. As soon as this whole GameStop thing started going, I thought about you and your thoughts on it. So right before we went on, you started to get fired up about the ignorance of people on both sides. Both sides of what and what ignorance? Who are you talking about?
The politicians on both the Democrat and Republican sides have no idea what's going on. They should absolutely stay away from this. This is a healthy thing in the market. This isn't some new idea. This has happened a million times before. It will happen going forward. The idea, and by the way, Liz Warren saying that hedge funds are the predators here, it shows her ignorance, considering that these are retail investors hurting hedge funds. But even Ted Cruz, to agree with AOC, I've never been so disappointed with Ted Cruz in my entire life.
What? Why?
Well, first of all, to agree with AOC is, important to everything I believe in. But secondarily, he needs to take time to research what's going on. And Robinhood didn't want to trade these stocks because they couldn't afford it. If you trade a stock for a client, you got to put down 1 or 2% in cash. If the stock trades 50 billion in a day, which it did, you got to put down $1 billion in cash, which they don't have. So how are they going to trade the stock? So the conspiracy theories with like Stevie Cohen, absolute hogwash. That's not at all. Robinhood could not afford to keep doing trades for their clients. That's what it simply came to. They just didn't have the money, which is usually what it is in life. You don't have the money.
But the conspiracy theories fit so nicely. They do. They sound so good.
Well, actually, no, they really do. That's when conspiracy theories really have legs for a long time, is when they do fit very well. And so, one could say, hey, maybe, who knows,
Yeah. Are there good guys and bad guys in this story at all?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think there's any bad guys at all. I think this is a wonderful story of American capitalism. I love the Wild West. High Noon is one of the best all-time movies. That obviously had some evildoers, but this did not. This just had a bunch of, people shooting it up. And I'm proud of what happened. I think it's great. Melvin Capital is doing a stupid thing. They're putting too much short on an almost dead company. If you want to make money on a short, come up with something new. Everybody and their brother has been shorting GameStop since I was like 12 years old, and I'm like 40. So it's just, come on. So that's what we call picking up nickels in front of a bulldozer. So they're going to make, maybe a few $100 million on this GameStop short when, of course, their whole fund imploded because of it. So it's just, and plus they had no portfolio management. They should have just been, making this position smaller. I actually just had on my own show, Citadel, former head of risk, and he explained to me that how also it could never have happened from Citadel's standpoint, just in terms of calling Robinhood and having them not get involved. Plus, they want retail to trade. Citadel makes money on retail trading. So Citadel had no desire. Sure, their hedge funds might have been getting hurt. Citadel, the executioner, by the way, that's the whole lie about Robinhood. Robinhood takes these free trades and sells them to hedge funds at a profit. So it's like, okay, I'm going to trade for free. No, you're not trading for free. Your execution on E-Trade will be better even with your $6 fee. Do the research. Your trade's being sold. You're immediately losing money on your trade. Sure, if you're a long-term investor, I guess it makes sense. But you're losing money on that individual trade from an economic standpoint.
How does Robinhood make money?
They take their trades and they sell it to other hedge funds who then make money on the spread. So it's like, okay, I've got $500 million of GM to buy. They're going to go sell it for $500 million plus $5 million, and so all those orders got executed 1% higher. And with E-Trade, you could have snuck in and not paid 1% higher. And for $5.95, as long as you traded $600 or more, you would have beaten that 1% spread. And so on Robinhood, I think some professor from Cornell said it was like a 1.5 on average. And so think about what's 1.5%. At $5.95 at E-Trade, you just need to clear that to beat Robinhood. And then all of a sudden it's economically not free. But it is, they don't take your money, so you feel good about that. And, feelings are a big part of human existence.
Wow. So it's not even free on the front end. I thought there was going to be something like where they like
you economically pay for it. You're getting, instead of buying GM at $35.20, you bought it at $35.55. Oh, but there was no you didn't pay it in execution. Oh, that was free. It was free. They sold it to somebody else at $35.20 when you actually went to buy the stuff.
What a scam!
Like,
I thought they
okay.
were just. I thought you were going to say they just sell your data, which I'm sure they do that as well, right?
No. It's not even that valuable yet. We're getting there, but
oh, what a scam. Okay. Why? What is the good? What is the market? How do I say this? Short selling. Okay, so I understand how it works. I think enough, right? I think.
Short selling is what got Enron exposed. So there you go. I mean, there's great stuff in short selling. You need
so what's
that.
good of it? What's the good? What's the good you need? Who needs it? Who needs it? And why does the market need
Humans
it?
are a bunch of liars. I mean, if you believe that half of the Chinese companies are frauds, which many people do believe, that kind of denotes the obvious that humans lie. And if humans lie, you need short sellers to come up with those liars, like Valiant 4 years ago. Mike Christen was a huge liar. That company was a fraud, and it was brought to be as a fraud by short sellers. Enron, the greatest, one of the greatest frauds of all, was found out by a short seller. The guy who was called, remember, he was called you blank on air during the earnings call because he couldn't answer the question. Because when people can't answer questions, they get very passionate because they know they're
okay. All right. So this is interesting. So someone would short a stock because they think the company's executives or whatever are lying about its value.
Sure, or they just think it's overvalued. And so I think Andrew Left is a hero. I think what he does is phenomenal work. He's out there protecting the retail investor. And so everyone got mad at him because he said GameStop was overvalued. Of course GameStop's overvalued. I feel bad he showed it at 40 and the thing's at 500 and God knows how much of his wealth he just lost. But he's a great guy. I actually messaged with him this morning before I came on saying, hey, I just, you're doing a great job. Very proud of you.
How does he feel right? How does he feel today?
Feels, feels like he ate a bunch of cardboard and,
No, I don't really know what it feels like to lose billions of dollars. Like, is he going to jump off a bridge? Like, how does he recover from this? He just
spent 25 years of his life being the short master, and now all of a sudden he's not going to short anymore. It's like going from Catholicism to Judaism. So yeah, he's had a tough week or two.
Okay, all right. So I think the storyline is that that guy, what's his name? Who you just mentioned?
Andrew Left, and he's a brilliant guy. We've been talking about doing a piece together, but the problem is rebellion. We've done a few, exposés. There was a weight company 2 years ago that 275. Two of my students examined it and said it was. We didn't call it a fraud. We just felt that there was no real value there. And the stock ended up imploding, which, and so, Andrew and I started talking about doing something. Plus, Andrew had come out in Questcor, which was this total fraud 10 years ago that really just sold snake oil that had, only got an FDA approval from a 1945 label and shouldn't have been out there. And they, had a little bit of steroid put in. But anyway, Andrew's
interesting. Okay. Brilliant guy. All right. So this guy, he and people like him. The claim is they find a company, they short it, and then they attack it and they make it tank. So they're pulling the strings, making it tank so that they can profit. Is there any truth to that?
If a company is in a position to tank because of the external pressures like that, I think it probably should be tanked. I believe in that. I believe in sowing the fields. If something is weak, let's kick it around a little bit and see how weak it is. I mean, kill off the weakling. This is an evolutionary world. I don't want to live in a communist utopia. I want to live in a Wild West America where good is enforced, but individual rights and individual liberties are the blessings that we count first and foremost in this country.
All right, last question. We've got about a minute. What should the government do?
Nothing. The government should stay away and do nothing. The more they do, the more they will just hurt the economy and hurt the markets and hurt people. The government does not do anything right.
What should hedge funds do?
Hedge funds should have better risk controls and should look for more novel ideas on what will implode. Like I said, GameStop was a short idea first pitched to me in 2007. That short idea has been around for 13 years. Yes, it's a
Okay.
very absurd idea. I mean,
What should the retail investor kind of just doing this on the side person do?
personally, I would sell every one of these right now and take your profit and run. JP Morgan got famous by selling too early. And I like that. I got rich by selling too early. Eventually, all of these come back to earth. Everything comes back to earth. Volkswagen was the largest company in the world at one point, over $1 trillion. This has happened before. It'll happen again. LTCM had the stupidest risk controls in the world. So the idea that another $15 billion fund had, bad risk controls, hedge funds need to blow up. It's a good thing.
Alexander Fleiss, awesome to talk to you, brother. Can we do it again?
You're the best. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, man. Rebellion Research. Appreciate you. Professor Vincent Raciniello, another smart guy, coming up next. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, let's get right to our friend and our professor, Professor Vincent Raciniello. He's the host, he's a professor of virology at Columbia University and the host of This Week in Virology. You got to go watch that on microbe.tv. Professor, hello, sir.
Good morning. How are we today?
Very, very good. Good to talk to you. Got a ton of questions for you, Professor. So let's start with the masks. It's become a bit of a joke, right? In a way, the idea that we need to wear 2 masks, and then people are like, well, 3 masks, well, 17 masks, 1,000 masks. We have one link here, or one headline of, here's Fauci saying, you got to wear more masks, and then another expert is saying that 2 masks can be worse for you than one. What are we doing with masks, Professor?
Masks are good. You wear 1 mask, you wear it properly, and you're good. That's the bottom line. It's crazy, you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like you said, that's not necessary. I think the problem is that not everyone wears 1 mask correctly, right? You wear it below your nose. That's not good. It has to fit nicely on your face. It has to cover your nose. And if you do that, you're fine. I don't see why we have to wear 2 or more. Absolutely not.
It's just like a very human concept that like, well, if 1's good, 2's better.
That's
so
right.
Why is 2 not better?
Well, I think this idea of it not being better is not correct. I think a really good solution, I have a cloth mask that I wear, right? One good solution would be to wear one of those disposable surgical masks underneath it and the cloth on top. And that way you could throw out the surgical mask at the end of the day. That's a good solution because, the disposability is nice and you don't have to be washing your other mask all the time. But it's not going to be worse, all right? This idea that it's worse, not true.
Okay. I want to talk about kids because I know we've talked a lot about kids and getting back to school. And I've seen a lot of studies, and there's studies after studies, right, Professor? That's why I want to go to you, that kids are not spreading this. When proper precautions are taken, the kids are not spreading this. And UNC Duke had one, and they followed 100,000 students and teachers, and not 1 case was spread amongst kids, and similar studies like that. Where are you at with kids spreading it, and also then therefore kids wearing masks? And I guess we can talk about kids maybe under the age of 12 and kids over the age of 12, because my understanding is there's a difference there too.
Yeah, so I just looked at a study from Wisconsin, K through 12 schools, where they had good mask wearing, and they had just, I think, 7 kids get infected out of many thousands over the period they were looking. And I think the conclusion of that is if the kids are wearing masks and you're doing the distancing and reduced class sizes, you can really cut down transmission. Now, we always knew that kids don't get sick as much as adults do. That's clear, which is not to say kids never get sick. They can get the Kawasaki syndrome and so forth. It's pretty rare, but it's not absent. But and they do get infected, but they appears to me, and this is my interpretation, if you wear masks, if you do the distancing, you can reduce infections in schools, which is really good news because it's really better for kids to get back to school.
What about the adults getting worried about getting sick? So the sick kid goes to school, an infected kid goes to school, and then gets a teacher sick. Is that a concern?
So far, it doesn't seem to be. Again, if you're masking and distancing properly, you can avoid getting the teachers sick. And I think last time we talked about a scenario where the teachers would be immunized, right? Because the kids under 18 can't get the vaccine right now. And would that be an issue? And if the kids are wearing masks and distancing, no, they are going to really cut down on their infections. So in all these scenarios, I'm not worried about the teachers or the kids.
Can we make a distinction between, let's say, prepubescent and post-puberty in infection and spread?
Yeah, as the age goes up, you get more severe infections, right? And so that's why we divide it into the two age groups that you say. So older kids, yeah, that's why we do K through 12 for this one, because as soon as you go above that, obviously, then you get more severe disease, and you want to prevent infections in all of them.
Why? Why is there a difference between like 12 and under? One theory I read is that the ACE2 is not as prevalent in younger kids. What's the science behind why pre-puberty and post-puberty may be different?
So the problem with ACE2 is that that's not the whole story in the infection. It's only the first step, right? It's the first step of virus binding to ACE2 and getting into cells. And there's a whole slew of things that go on after it. So I'm very suspicious of studies that look at ACE2 and make big conclusions. I don't buy that at all. We do know kids, very young kids, their immune response isn't as well developed as older kids. And that may be part of it, because we know the severe disease in COVID is largely an immune response mediated disease, right? It's a runaway train, right? So yes. Kids don't do that. And I think that's a big part of it, frankly. But in the end, we're not sure. And people are trying to figure this out. And I'm not sure we're going to know for a while.
Why would little kids not spread it as much? Well, again, one theory was that their lungs aren't as strong as older kids, so they're not making aerosols that travel as great of a distance. Anything to that?
I mean, that may be part of it, but I think the other aspect are that kids have very different interactions than older kids, right? They tend to stay distant, and their interactions, I think that's a big part of it. And physiology may be also part of it, but we don't know because we haven't studied kids very much. It could be that they're shedding less virus, right? But none of that's been looked at. But I do think if you look at the virus sides, that's fine. But also look at their social interactions in schools and so forth. They're really different from teenagers, for example.
Nice. Let's talk about reinfection and what immunity is. That the proper word? What's the latest on how long it lasts? Do you think if you get COVID, your immunity is shorter or longer than if you get the vaccine? What's your thoughts on that?
So that's a great question. So far, the studies have suggested that after getting COVID and recovering, you have immunity that can last possibly a few years at least, okay? And we have no reason to think the vaccine will be different. It could be the same. It could be better. But what is really the question is the virus going to change so that whatever immunity you have is not going to be that helpful, right? So if natural immunity lasts 10 years, say, and the virus changes every couple of years, then we're going to have to change the vaccine. And so the first suggestions are now that the virus can change, which we didn't know before. And we may have to be looking at new vaccines every couple of years, sort of like influenza vaccines.
I had a friend who had it, and they said they were told, who knows, right? Everything that's out there. They have 3 months of immunity. That seems short. What do you think?
Well, that's mainly because, most of the studies are only a couple of months out, right? And so we're limited in that. But there are other studies which try and extend what they've learned in 3 months to longer periods by comparing the immunity to other viruses, and they come up with a longer term. So I don't think 3 months is a realistic. It's being honest with the data, but I think it's going to be longer than that. Yeah.
Okay, very, very good. But when you get the vaccine, you think that'll be, again, saying there's no let's say it stays the same. Let's say it's the same COVID. Would the vaccine last longer than if you get it naturally, or the same?
It could last longer because remember, the vaccines are not the actual infection, right? And so the virus, when it infects you, could be messing with your immune system. And the vaccines are not going to do that. So the vaccines could give you longer protection. So I would say the vaccine might be actually better than a natural infection, which is not always the case. Natural infections we consider great as long as you don't get too sick. But we'll see in the next year or so.
I hear this going around a lot, and I keep saying there's no way this is true, and I think people are misinterpreting this, that the vaccine is not FDA approved. I've heard many, many people say that. What's the truth there?
So the vaccines have emergency use authorizations. That is not a formal FDA approval, which means you could sell the vaccine to anyone who wants it. Right now, it has to be used under certain conditions, and we're in an emergency, and that's why it's got only an EUA, and they won't approve it formally until the phase 3 is over, which I think is sometime later this spring for some of these companies. So technically, that's right. It only has an EUA, but that's what all the vaccines have that are been using globally. They have EUAs, not formal approval.
But so it is not FDA approved, but what's the rest of that thought?
Oh, but the FDA gave an EUA, which means you can use it. We believe it's safe and effective, and you can use it under emergency situations, which is a pandemic, right? They just want to wait for the rest of the data to come in. Otherwise, people would say, oh, you gave it approval without waiting for the phase 3 trial to be done, right? But the FDA has approved the EUA. There's no doubt about that, and they're very enthusiastic about its safety and efficacy.
Okay. About the changing vaccine or changing virus, our local paper, we have a professor at UCSD, an infectious disease modeler, and she's worried that it'll change a lot. And I know we've talked. I guess she's studied a lot of the transmission of hepatitis C and HIV. So I don't know what the correlation may be between all that, but she thinks it'll change a lot over time, or pretty quickly actually, like by the summer. And she thinks that the next few months could be the hardest because of that. Where's your thoughts on the changing of it?
So I don't think a lot is the right word. Virus can only tolerate so many changes, and then it doesn't work anymore. We know from other common cold coronas that they change over years, 5 to 8 years. Influenza can change every year, every couple of years. It's not a lot, though, that it doesn't take a lot to change to need you get a new vaccine. So I think those words aren't really well chosen. I think the virus is clearly changing. There's limits to its change. I get this question a lot. Could it keep changing and change to a different virus entirely? No, there are limits, and it will respect that. And so I'm not worried about it in that sense. I think we're ready to respond and make a different vaccine if we need to next year.
I always like that hopeful note. We have time for just one last final thought, and hopefully it's a hopeful one again.
I wanted to just remind everyone, here's the coronavirus model with its spikes. We had 2 new vaccines have phase 3 data this past week from Johnson & Johnson and Novavax, and they look pretty good. So I think that's great. And maybe we could talk about it next time, because we're going to add more vaccines to our mix, and nothing could be better than that.
Wow, so now in America, we'd be at 4?
4 vaccines, that's right.
Wow, with different supply chains too?
Yeah, they're different modalities. Let's talk next week. We can go into the details, but a lot of interesting differences, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's really good. All right, everyone, go to microbe.tv and learn more. Thanks, Professor. Wonderful to talk to you.
Bye.
As always, thank you, sir. Wonderful stuff. All right, that's it. We'll come back tomorrow. We're going to continue our theme of populism, what it is, good and bad, and things to be aware of, as we are certainly in the midst of a populist wave. True story. Mike Slater. Have a great day. Spread the word.